So in this video, we're going to take a look at the open world stuff in Amazing Spider-Man 2, primarily the crime-related stuff. There's some other things you can do in the open world, like races and photo investigations, but we're just going to do the crime side activities. This activity right here is a police deadlock, which, as was said previously, basically functions as a miniature level in itself. There are a bunch of bad guys laid out for you to take down with stealth or with the beat-em-up combat. As has also been established, I prefer the stealth. But just in case the stealth doesn't work out, the outfit we're wearing, the Ricochet outfit, has increased seismic blast radius. So if we were to get caught, like this, let's say, we can just sort of fucking do that. I really love the seismic blast. Its utilities are limited, but when you're up against a crowd of small, normal enemies, it's pretty banging, especially with the Ricochet suit. Of course, I still prefer just actual stealth takedowns, but unleashing a seismic blast in a big group of enemies and watching them all go flying gives me some Dynasty Warriors pleasure. It's just a nice ability to have. It's not really something Spider-Man has in any other game either, it's just a gadget from this one. Unfortunately, even when the seismic blast is fully upgraded and you have the Ricochet suit, there are still some things it can't do. Like taking out big guys, as far as I can tell, is always a tedious affair. No matter how beefy you are. You know, I've been playing the original Amazing Spider-Man video game a bit alongside this for comparison. They're very, very different games. Really, they feel almost nothing alike, but there are some things that carry between the two games that make it seem like Beanox was trying to establish a legitimate series here, even though they're things I'm not sure anyone would notice or particularly care about too much. Like that bit where Spidey places tracers on antennas. That's in the original game as well. And the whole cross-species thing that the game has, that's a continuation of a plot point that was expanded on from the movie, but is unique to the first video game. And the second video game really only makes sense if you remember that plot point from the first video game. There's also a reference to Peter house-sitting for Stan in one of the early cutscenes, which is, again, a reference to the first game. It just bizarrely seems like Activision or Beanox were trying to have it both ways. They were trying to have a movie tie-in, but also a completely unrelated Spider-Man game that they could use to establish an ongoing franchise. And I kind of wonder what it was meant to feel like. Like, if they did get a third one, would it be expected that the player base would feel comforted by the familiarity and the tropes established from the previous two games? I think if they did get a third game, it would be fair to assume that there would be a scene where Spidey attaches tracers to 3 antennas to get the open world activities. The same way he did it in this game and the prequel to this game. And I feel like maybe that's meant to establish a sense of comfort and familiarity with Beanox's take on Amazing Spider-Man. A kind of signature that they leave to let you know that it's their formula. It's a small thing, and I know antennas and towers are common in open world games, but specifically placing a tracer on 3 antennas about 4% into the game, so that way you can unlock all of the open world activities. It happens exactly the same way in both this game and the prequel. The few recurring characters like Whitney Chang have personalities identical to the previous game. It just sort of gives the impression that either Activision or Beanox was trying to build the video games as their own thing for people to become attached to, independent of the films that they were based on or tied into. And I mean, I guess it worked for me in the sense that I don't really care about the Amazing Spider-Man 2 film, but I play the video game. But I don't think the affection for either game was there. Like, I'm not entirely sure people really remember the first Amazing Spider-Man video game. Were people even still playing or talking about the Amazing Spider-Man movie game when this game came out? I don't get that impression. I liked the original Amazing Spider-Man video game, and I think back during my Spider-Man 3 LP, back whenever the fuck that was, I even called it incredible. Watch me royally fuck up the stealth here. This entire section is just going to be an absolute smorgasbord of me fucking everything up. Something of note about the spider sense in this game as compared to its prequel is that the spider sense in this game is a lot better. It's more visible, the camera's further zoomed out so you can see it easier, and the color coding has changed. In the original game, white meant you were about to be melee attacked and red meant you were about to be sniped at. And in this one, it's the other way, because enemies being red is much easier to convey to the player. They glow red when they're about to hit you, they're red when you're looking at them with spider sense. Red is just a good color for bad guys to be, for visual clarity. Having the bad guys appear white or glow white would not make them stick out as much, and white meaning general danger seems a lot more reasonable. It's been established through tropes in popular media that red means danger, bad, or hey, this is an objective in some way, pay attention. It's the look at me color. So the spider sense color coding is just much better in this game than it is in the first one. And white's kind of a vague color that doesn't have too many assigned meanings or tropes. So white meaning there's a vague projectile danger in the distance seems fine to me. I think that was a good choice. It doesn't have too many assigned meanings or tropes as far as video game HUDs and displays are concerned. I mean, like, obviously there's been a lot of cultural meanings and fictional meanings assigned to the color white, but as far as reading a screen goes, look, I'm tired. This sounds right to me, okay? This seems like a smart decision in terms of visual design to me. But regardless of any opinions on the color coding, the fact that the camera's more zoomed out makes it a lot easier to pay attention to the spider sense. And we're about to fight an enemy type that was introduced that I didn't even talk about, because all you do is web pull them and then clothesline them, and then you can web them up. Like this. I wish the fat guys were this easy to take down. I'm a big fan of these automatic closing doors on the police van. By the way, these little Daily Bugle headlines do appear every time you complete a side mission. Every single time. But it's obviously there to disguise the load screen, so I don't mind it so much. It's better than looking at an empty load screen. I guess we should talk about the hero meter in a little more detail. You want the meter to go to the right because blue is good. You don't want the meter to go to the left because then it'll turn red and red is bad. And what determines how the heroic meter moves is simply your activity in the open world. If you stop crimes, it goes blue. If you ignore crimes, it goes red. And when it goes red, the task force start patrolling the city to kill you. I seem to remember people complaining that the heroic meter goes down simply when you ignore crimes. But that fits perfectly with the themes of Spider-Man. Like, Spider-Man's whole thing is not ignoring suffering. So it makes sense to me that ignoring suffering would make your hero meter go down, because a hero doesn't ignore suffering. That's how I feel about it. I remember the open world activities in this game pretty well, even though I think they're underwhelming. But I don't remember much at all about the previous game's open world activities. And I think the advertising for the previous game was like, finally a return to free-roaming open world Manhattan. Because there were a couple linear Spider-Man games, and I guess people wanted the open world stuff back? I don't remember. Obviously, I loved Edge of Time. I spent all my time sucking Edge of Time's dick. But maybe after Edge of Time, which was by far the most linear Spider-Man game, people were excited to get back to more open world stuff. But with this game's prequel, just like this game, I was really only interested in the main levels and main story. Here's the bomb side missions. I mean, it's only one of the bomb side missions, but they're all like this. There's a bomb, you find it, you grab it, you throw it in the water, or you try to throw it in the water anyway. So, something I've noticed about Spider-Man games is that whenever it's time to disarm bombs, Spider-Man makes an effort to put them in the water or disarm them completely, one of the two. But in Insomniac's Spider-Man on the PS4, he just throws the bomb in the air over the crowded city streets and shoots webbing at it until it goes poof. And that just seems a little irresponsible, you know? Spidey does have one-liners in that game where he's like, it makes a big poof, but it's harmless. He says things like that, but still, why risk it? And that is why, objectively, Amazing Spider-Man 2 has superior bomb disposal to Insomniac's Spider-Man video game, because Spider-Man is more responsible about how he handles bombs. You gotta send the right messages to children.